Good afternoon and welcome to the RCN Foundation's webinar on how to complete a successful education grant application to us. I'm Dr. Sarah McGloin. I'm the Head of Grants and Impact at the Foundation, and you'll also be seeing my colleague on the call, Katie Slater, who is our Grants Manager. Just to give you a little bit of background about the RCN Foundation, we're an independent nursing charity. We sit within the RCN group. And we provide grants to nurses who are members and non-members of the RCN. We also provide grants to midwives and nursing associates and healthcare assistants as well. We provide hardship grants to those who are experiencing financial difficulties. We provide grants for nursing-led projects and research. And what we're talking about today is the education grants that we provide. So I'm now going to hand over to Katie, who's going to talk you through some of the process.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, my name's Katie and I'm the Grants Manager at the Foundation. So as Sarah has mentioned, this webinar aims to help you complete the RCN Foundation Education Grants application process. The presentation will focus on our main grants programme, the Professional Bursary Scheme. If you have any questions about a different programme, you can ask these during the Q&A portion of the presentation, which will be at the end. In this presentation, we're going to explain who is eligible to apply and what courses they can apply for. And we are also going to give some advice on what makes a good application. So, the RCN Foundation runs 2 rounds of education grants, one in the spring and one in the autumn. The spring round usually opens in March and runs until the end of May, and the autumn round opens at the end of August and closes at the end of October. One thing to watch out for is the eligible course or module dates, which change every round. So if your course or module falls outside of these dates, your application will not be considered. So please do make sure that you check these on the website before applying. And so who can apply? You have to be either a UK registered nurse or midwife, a healthcare support worker working in the UK, or a nursing associate. It is important to note that the Foundation supports both non-members of the RCN as well as members. So if you're not a member, you can still apply. The course that you're applying for must be accredited by the UK Higher Education Institution and must be related to nursing or healthcare, and you must be able to demonstrate within your application how this course or module will help you in your current nursing role. We're now going to move on to the specific sections of the application form. The first part of the application will ask you to select which grant you are applying for, and you will then be asked to fill in some personal details, including your employer and your job title. Step 2 will ask you to list your most recent relevant qualifications. So in step 3, in the educational activity part of the question, please ensure that you put the name of the module that you are applying for funding for. If it's part of a longer course, there will be the opportunity to put this in below. In the summary of the activity, please make sure that this is clearly explained, including the aims and objectives of the course and any learning outcomes and how these will enhance your career. In this section, you will also be asked to input the start and end date. Please make sure that the date that you input is eligible. So for example, if you're applying for a grant in this current round of grants, the eligible dates will be any module starting between the 1st of January 2022 and the 1st of January 2023. I'm just going to briefly talk about the budget section in step 4 of the form. You'll be asked if you have asked your employer for funding, and if not, why not? You will then be asked for a budget breakdown where you can enter budget items including course fees, travel, or any other associated costs. Please ensure that the entire budget does not exceed the eligible amount of £1,600. If it does, your application will not be eligible. I'm now going to hand over to Sarah, who will take you through the rest of the application.
Thank you, Katie. So when we're looking at applications, what we need to emphasise is it is a competitive process. We receive a lot of grant applications, particularly for education grants, over the period of the course, so in autumn and spring. So you need to make sure that your application is the one that stands out. So to give you some guidance and some sort of key tips on this, first of all, we like to see sort of quite comprehensive answers. If you're just going to give a one-line response to, for instance, what are your professional goals and how will the course help you achieve these, a one-line response is not going to really be comprehensive enough for us to be able to judge your application. So the types of things we would expect you to cover here is think about where you are in your career now. Are you a newly qualified nurse? Are you somebody who's been in practice for quite a while? Are you doing an MSc, or are you just doing another type of module or course just to update your knowledge, skills and understanding? Think about where you are in your career now and think about where you want to be maybe in 5 years' time, and then consider how this course will help you move on. It could be that you don't necessarily want to climb up the grading ladder, but you might want to learn new skills and knowledge in relation to your clinical practice, maybe at a band 5 or band 6, and stay, at that level. That's absolutely fine. But it's all about how you're going to develop within those roles. Next slide, Katie, please. Everything we do at the foundation, the patient is central to it, absolutely everything. So any application we have or we receive, we want to see that the patient is forefront to that application. So what you need to think about when you're thinking about applying to us for an education grant is how your education and the training that you will receive on your course or your module or your study day or your conference will enhance patient care and well-being. It's really helpful to give examples, give tangible examples. So for example, a lot of people apply to us to help fund their non-medical prescribing course, and they're often doing it as part of an MSc in advanced practice. That's absolutely fine. Because we have so many applications for that, you need to make your one stand out. So you need to think, okay, with me doing the NMP, how will that enhance patient care? How will that make a difference to the patients that I look after? And really, we want to see the impact of the education and training that we would be funding on patient care. Another example would be the research module. A lot of people do research modules as part of their masters or even undergraduate courses. You need to think about, okay, so understanding and developing the skills around research. Ultimately, how is that going to feed into my clinical practice and to enhance patient care? So an example would be by undertaking a research module, maybe at master's level, you'll have an understanding of how to read a research paper and how to interpret if a paper that you're reading is good enough to base a change of practice on. Next slide, please, Katie. One thing that we are also very clear to require is that you share your knowledge and understanding that you've gained through your training and development. So when you're actually going through your application, you need to demonstrate to us, how are you going to use your new knowledge? What are you going to do with it? How are you going to share it with your colleagues? Are you going to do teaching sessions? Are you going to share it at key meetings, departmental meetings, maybe regional meetings? Are you going to share it through displays in your area, in your clinical area, or on a notice board, because there is no time to do teaching sessions? Are you going to use it as part of your sort of own reflection and maybe part of a clinical supervision session if you're able to take part in those? We really want to think about how you're going to share your knowledge and understanding with other people. Next slide, please. So it's always helpful for us to understand what other type of professional development that you have done prior to this application. So there's all sorts of courses or study days or conferences that you might have taken part in. It could be that you actually read journals, that you subscribe to a journal, that you look up, that you might be active on Twitter, for instance, and there's an awful lot of development stuff that goes on around there. It would be really helpful to understand what training you've done in the past and why you did this and what were your take-home lessons from that. Also, particularly if you're looking at something like a master's degree, it would be helpful to explain if you've received any support with fees or funding in the past, and whether you get study leave or whether you have to take, some organisations might provide some funding but expect you to do the study in your own time. Next slide, please. Right, this is quite a big one, and this is quite an important one for us to understand. In our application form, we ask about the challenges that you might face with doing some professional development. And everybody will respond with, I have time as a challenge, having the time to do it, and having the funding and the money available to do it. It would be really helpful if we could see more. So for instance, if you're undertaking a master's level program for the first time, that could be quite challenging. Doing your first module at master's level plus working and everything else that goes on in life could be quite demanding. So it would be interesting to hear how you would cope with a different academic level of study. It could be that you're relatively new in your clinical area and you're going away to learn about more detailed things around how to practice in that area. So it could be something new to you, and that could be quite challenging as well. The actual material and the course could be quite challenging. So what we want to hear is more than, well, the challenges to me are going to have the time to do it and the money to do it, because we absolutely understand that, and that's really why you're applying for the grant in the first place. But there will be other challenges that you will have to face, and it would be really helpful to hear what those are, and also, more importantly, what strategies you have got in place to address them. Because the last thing we want to be doing is supporting everybody and helping them, but for them not to be able to complete their programme. Next slide, please. So one of the important aspects of the whole grant application is, once you've got your grant and you've had your you've done your education, you've received your training, you've done your study days, you've been to the conference, whatever, we want you to be able to tell us how this has impacted on your own clinical practice and how you can evaluate the effectiveness of what you have learned. Now, again, a lot of people will say here, oh, I get feedback from my lecturer and I listen to that. Well, actually, that's only at one level. We want to hear what impact it's had on your patients. So maybe having an idea about patients' feedback, listening to what they view about what you've learned and how that's impacted on your practice. What your colleagues think as well, if they've seen an enhancement in your knowledge and understanding. Another way that you can measure the effectiveness of the education activity you've undertaken is, have you made any changes in practice? If so, what was the feedback? Were they effective? That's really, really key. The whole point around doing education is to try and move practice forward based upon the best available evidence. So this is very much what we're supporting. So very much move away from, oh, I'll just listen to the feedback from my lecturer, but to thinking about the tangible ways in which you can implement your learning in practice to enhance patient care. And finally, we have a quote from one of our previous grantees. So who reported to us, the bursary has inspired me to keep improving. It has meant that I'm able to practice confidently and competently, which in turn gives me great job satisfaction. So this is music to our ears, and this is exactly what we want to hear. Okay, thank you, and over to you, Katie.
Brilliant, thank you. So we are now going to open the Q&A. So please do, if you have any questions, you can ask them now, and we will do our best to answer them for you. So we'll just give you a few minutes to ask any questions that you have. No questions yet. Anything at all about any queries you may have about dates or about your application, the course you might be doing?
Katie, have you got any questions that you often have people ring up with that you can think of?
We do. So we often get asked about the references. So that's something that we haven't mentioned yet. We do require references for our applications. and somebody has just asked this actually, do I need to include any references with my application? And it will depend on the level of course that you are applying for. So if your module is a level 6 or any kind of course below that, then you will only need to provide one reference, and that will be a manager's reference. If your course is level 7 or above, so master's level or above, then you will need to provide 2, one manager's reference and then a reference from an academic reference. So this could be from a past university or tutor. If you don't have that, or if that was a long time ago, you can ask a senior colleague who is able to comment on your academic ability, and that would be fine. So we've got a few more questions coming through. I'll just publish them so everyone can see. Okay, so the first question, I have a 3-year course, can I get funding for all 3? So the answer there is that you can only apply for funding for up to 1 year. If your course is 3 years, you are able to reapply, but you would have to reapply for the next year, and it would not be guaranteed that you would get that funding. So what I would say is just make sure that if you're not reliant on the funding, because if you weren't to be successful in years 2 or 3, you wouldn't want to make that, you wouldn't want that to mean that you would have to drop out of your course. So the next question, I'm not a member of the RCN, can I apply? Absolutely, you can. So non-members can apply. We're an independent charity, we're open to all nurses, midwives and healthcare assistants, so yes, please do apply. How long do I have to wait to know if I've got it? That's a great question. So the review process takes place after the closing date, and it can take up to about 4 weeks, I would say. All applications are sent out to external reviewers, and obviously this can take some time. And we do contact everybody who's applied to let them know whether they're successful or not. But yeah, I would say it takes up to a month to get back to you. Are there any other questions?
Yes, there's one. I'll publish it, and it's saying if my course has already started, but I've got modules next year, can I apply for these even though the course has started? Absolutely you can, but you need to make sure it's within the rounds, so either in the spring round or autumn round, so make sure that the dates match in. But yes, if you're already on a 3-year programme and you've got 2 more years to go, then you can apply, definitely.
And somebody's just asked what the opening dates are again. So we're currently open now until the 25th of October, and then we will be opening again in the spring around sort of mid to end of March. And we'll be communicating that to everybody. What I would say is that we do update members of our mailing list. So if you want to receive updates on when the grants are opening, you can do this. You can email us, or you can go onto our website, and there is a link where you can sign up to our mailing list, and then you'll receive automatic updates about this. You can also email us. I've got the email address on the slide there at grants@rcnfoundation.org.uk. And if you have any other questions that we weren't able to answer today, then you can email us at that address. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions at the moment. So I'd just like to thank everybody for coming along. And I'll just put Sarah on the screen so she can thank everyone as well.
Yes, thank you, Katie, and thank you everyone for attending. We are going to put this up onto our website as well, so that there's so you can refer to this as well. But obviously, if you do have any queries or questions, please just do email us on the grants@rcnfoundation.org.uk email address, and we will get back to you very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.